Welcome to Sleepy Scientist Stories, where tonight we venture into the most intimate mystery of all, the very nature of your awareness itself. Breathe slowly and let your mind drift like a feather caught between dimensions, suspended in that sacred space where thought becomes reality and reality bends to the whispers of consciousness. Right now, as you settle into this moment, whether you're watching from your bedroom sanctuary, a quiet corner of the world, or anywhere in between the chaos and calm of existence, something extraordinary is happening within the quantum cathedral of your mind. What if the thoughts flowing through you like gentle rivers aren't merely electrical signals dancing across neural pathways, but something far more profound, threads of pure awareness woven into the cosmic tapestry itself? Picture, if you will, the possibility that your consciousness doesn't end at the edges of your skin, but extends infinitely outward, entangled with every atom that has ever sparkled in the darkness of space. Tonight, we'll explore a question that has haunted brilliant minds and mystic souls alike. What if consciousness isn't produced by your brain, but channeled through it, like starlight flowing through a prism? What if every moment of awareness, every dream, every gentle thought drifting through your drowsy mind right now, exists in a realm where quantum particles dance to the rhythm of pure possibility? In this liminal hour between waking and sleep, between the known and the unknowable, we'll discover whether the mirror of consciousness reflects not just our inner world, but the very essence of reality itself. Evening lowers its quiet veil, and the bright traffic of thought thins to gentle lanes. Inside the skull, towns of cells dim their lights, one neighborhood at a time, until only soft windows glow. Breathing finds a slow shore. The heart settles into an easy tide. Muscles loosen their small vows of effort. The day steps back like a tide from wet sand, leaving delicate lines and shells of memory that glimmer but do not call. Across wide fields of cortex, slow waves begin to rise and fall with the steadiness of distant surf. These waves do what careful hands might do at a crowded table: clear, fold, and put away. Edges blur where they should blur. Roughness smooths into grain. The mind grows spacious, as if a house opened its windows to the night and let the air move through its rooms without hurry, touching papers, curtains, and the wooden rails of the stair. Signals from the body arrive as warm postcards. Skin says the evening is mild. The gut says the work of the day is done. The chest says breath is enough. Together they form a soft chorus that asks for less doing and more being. In this hush, attention stops gripping the world like a handle and rests in the palm like a stone warmed by the sun. The stone needs no plan. It simply holds the day's heat and gives it back slowly. Memories change their clothes. Bright scenes that once insisted on being seen now accept a seat at the back of the hall. What matters stays, not by argument, but by weight. A promise kept, a kindness given, a small mistake forgiven by the quiet itself. The rest drifts to the edges and becomes background pattern, safe to keep, easy to leave. The mind does not close, it rearranges, finding a pattern that feels natural to breathe inside. Thoughts keep speaking, but more like moths than drums. They arrive, touch the lantern, circle once, and settle. When a worry tries to be loud, the broad wave lifts it and carries it down the beach until it is only foam. The wave returns, and the shoreline is still there, unchanged in the ways that matter. If the day held a storm, the night holds a broom. If the day held a feast, the night holds a napkin and water. Somewhere deep, small caretakers begin their rounds. They sweep, mend, and oil quiet hinges. Paths walked too often are narrowed. Paths worth keeping are laid with smoother stones. Breath marks time for this work. The chest rises, the chest falls, and the work goes on. No hurry touches it. The house cares for itself the way trees care for their rings in winter. Silently, precisely, with faith that morning will arrive and find the trunk a shade stronger. At last, the whole of awareness becomes a lake at dusk. A single boat floats in the center, lamp-lit, reflection steady. The shore is near but unneeded. Nothing presses from outside, nothing pushes from within. water holds water, light holds light, and the small flame neither flares nor fades. The chapter does not end with a door shutting. It ends with a curtain breathing at an open window and a gentle promise kept. Rest will be simple, and the dark will be kind. Inside the head, a soft orchestra takes its places. There are slow drums like the sea under the moon, patient strings like wind in grass, and small bright bells that come and go as if from distant hills. No section tries to lead for long. Each listens, then offers a line, then listens again. This is music meant for keeping, not for showing. One pattern folding into another, then dissolving to make room for the next. The keeper of doors opens and closes them with care, letting outside sounds arrive as shadows, not as knocks. Deeper rooms tend the body's clocks, heart, breath, warmth and rest. Another room, filled with maps and photographs, files quiet copies of the day's scenes. Faces become gentle sketches, streets become soft paths, feelings take their proper size. The filing is unhurried and exact, like a librarian who knows every book by the weight of its spine. Rhythm is the language here. Slow measures lay a floor, quicker measures write small designs upon it. Refrains return the way waves return, never the same, always familiar. When a bright phrase appears, it does not demand, it invites. The rest of the orchestra leans toward it, holds it for a few bars and then sets it gently down. Even silence feels played, like a rest written, with intention on a clean staff. Far corners answer one another without haste. A low hum in the back of the hall meets a whisper from the balcony, and together they make a single tone that settles the air. The effect is simple, a seamless present that supports itself. There is no strain in holding it up. The sound holds the listener the way a hammock holds a child, knitting small motions into one wide sway. The body hears this music and follows. Shoulders drift lower. The jaw remembers that it need not clench. Breath deepens by a finger's width and then by another. The pulse writes small commas between phrases. Even the eyes behind closed lids make their own quiet crescendos and diminuendos, like fish turning in dark water where a river meets the sea. When the orchestra finds a motif that suits the night, it stays near it. Variation is soft, a note moved down, a pause held slightly longer, a ribbon of harmony sliding under the same simple tune. Repetition becomes comfort, not cage. The ear begins to anticipate and is gently right each time. Trust grows, and with trust the urge to watch declines. Hearing becomes being held. At the end of the movement, the conductor lowers an invisible hand, and nothing falls. The music continues by itself, breathing as living things breathe. If any thought tries to stand and clap, it sits again of its own accord, smiling at a stage that no longer needs applause. The hall remains full, the lights remain low, and the soft work of night goes on, measure after measure, with no end to the kindness in its time. Memory does not live in boxes, it lives in paths. Small sparks cross familiar trails and widen them by a hair's breadth each time. A favourite face becomes a track through tall grass that parts a little easier with every passing. A lesson learned becomes a footbridge across a small stream, steadier each time careful feet cross. The land remembers footsteps. The footsteps remember how the land once felt. Feelings carry lanterns that colour the way. Joy paints the turn by the old oak in warm light, so that the path is easy to find again. Fear paints a steep place in cool light, so that feet measure themselves more carefully there. Over time, the map grows honest and kind. It does not lie about cliffs, and it does not forget meadows. It simply learns to guide without shouting. Sleep is the cartographer with the most patient hands. Pieces gathered by daylight, voices, smells, soft glances, are stitched into quilts that make sense when morning returns. If 3 patches belong together, sleep finds the seam. If a bright patch is too loud, sleep fades it to match the rest. The quilt warms not just the body but the day that will ask to wear it. Forgetting is not a failure in this land. It is pruning done with a gardener's eye. The path that led only to an empty gate grows over, and small shoots claim the stones. The path to the well is kept clear. Even the path that once served but now misleads is softened, not cursed. A traveller who errs finds nettles fewer, signs clearer, and a gentle turn back toward the main road. Stories help the paths hold together. A simple story, friend met, bread shared, sun low, binds separate steps into a single ribbon that can be picked up tomorrow without tangles. The storyteller is modest. It chooses the hinge moments and leaves the rest in the margins where they belong. The tale grows truer by being smaller, the way a map grows clearer by leaving out what the eyes can find alone. The body writes its own notes in the margins of these paths. A heartbeat quick at one bend means the bend mattered. Slow breath by a stream means the stream soothed. Later, when another stream is found, the chest knows before the head knows that rest might be near. In this way, the land and the traveller teach each other, and a soft wisdom forms that does not need words to be right. By dawn, the network of trails is tidy without being strict. There is room for new roads, room for detours, room for a wildflower to turn a foot aside just because it is bright. The old roads remain, softened where they should be, strong where they must be, and the mind that walks them carries less weight. It knows where water is. It knows where shade is. It knows that if it is lost for a time, the land itself will help it find its way back. Every large, quiet thing is built from smaller, quieter parts. A stone is made of small bonds holding hands. A leaf is made of small dances of water and light. A thought is made of small changes in tiny rooms where signals meet and drift apart. The rules of the small world are gentle and strange, but they give the big world its comfort, firmness, flow, and the soft glow of life at rest. Light arrives in tiny drops that carry news from one place to another. Sometimes a drop arrives at just the right moment and helps a step happen on time. Sometimes it simply glides past, like a firefly that does not need to land. The warmth of living matter makes such visits brief, and that is well. Brief is enough when the path is short, and the hands that pass the lantern know exactly where to stand. Molecules fold into useful shapes the way a scarf folds into a drawer, neatly, with a memory for corners. Water surrounds them and makes a quiet library of rooms, each with its own echo. In some rooms, signals linger. In some, they leave quickly. The house works because both kinds exist. There is no need for the small parts to sing loudly. They keep time, hold doors, and line shelves, so the larger rooms can do their calm work. Sometimes a tiny traveller reaches a wall and finds, to its surprise, that the wall is not the end but a place with a narrow gate. Slipping through does not break the rule of the house. It fulfills it. A small shortcut taken at the right moment spares effort later in the day. The house learns where such gates stand and uses them without fuss, like a baker reaching for the smallest knife when the crust is delicate. Even emptiness is not empty in the smallest rooms. It hums a little. That hum keeps shelves from sagging and helps the house settle in winter without cracking. No one hears it in the big rooms, and no one needs to. It is enough to know that the quiet has its own strength, and that strength is shared up the ladder until it reaches the level where lamps are lit and chairs are kind to those who sit. The mind sits at that level. It rests on wood made firm by small bonds and takes warmth from water that carries it gently from season to season. It does not have to understand the way every hinge is carved to trust the door. Trust comes because the door opens and closes the same way each time, and because the breeze it lets in is always the right size. In this way, the small world lends its lanterns to the large, without shining in anyone's eyes. The big world returns the favour by keeping the small safe. Steady temperature, soft walls, patient rhythms. Together they form a house that sleeps well, a house that wakes without creak or startle, a house where even the tiniest room feels the comfort of the whole, and the whole honours the quiet work done in the tiniest room. In quiet places, choice looks like a small tilt rather than a switch. A speck of light lands here rather than there, and a gentle path opens while another fades. The world is full of such tilts. Seeds that fall to one side of a stone and sprout, snow that slides from a roof at noon instead of dusk, a fish that turns left into calm water while the current leans right. Inside living matter, tiny tilts happen all the time. They are not loud. They do not claim importance, but taken together, they let the day find an easier line. Imagine a pond before dawn. The surface looks still, yet thin ripples pass from shore to shore. A single drop changes the pattern, not by force, but by being present at the moment the water is ready to carry a ring. So it is with the smallest glimmers that touch the machinery of life. A brief spark, a passing sway, a touch on the shoulder. These things do not push, they suggest. And when the larger system is listening, suggestion is enough. Laboratories have learned to hold quiet so well that such small choices can be watched like fireflies at the edge of a field. In living tissue, the quiet is different. Warmth moves through every room. Water murmurs along narrow halls. Proteins flex like sleeping cats. The stillness is never absolute. It is a soft-hearted stillness that allows 1,000 tiny motions to keep house. In this setting, delicate decisions must be quick. They appear, they lean the next step by a hair, and then they are gone, leaving the larger rhythm to carry on. The larger rhythm is patient. It waits for small hints and gathers them the way a shepherd gathers strays, guiding them toward a common trail. Breathing sets a tempo. Heartbeat sets a second one. The two weave together until a steady fabric forms, and the body lays itself upon that fabric as if upon a quilt. When sleep deepens, the quilt grows thicker. The small tilts keep working under the covers, but their work is measured now in ease rather than urgency. Sometimes light is not a visitor, but a guide. Plants open and close with it. Birds time their journeys by it. And skin knows when the world is turning its face to morning. Even behind closed lids, a trace of the day can be felt. The brain does not need brightness to know that brightness exists. It keeps time with a clock of its own, set by days that came before and will come again. In this timing, decisions grow simple. When to rest, when to rise, when to hold, when to let go. There is comfort in letting small things decide when they are better suited to the task. A traveller on a long walk lets the feet choose the exact place each step will fall. The mind sets the direction, the ground sets the details. This partnership prevents stumbles and gives stride to the whole. Inside the head, it is much the same. A wider intention hums softly, and many modest choices arrange themselves beneath it, each taking care of a corner, a stair, a turn. By the end of the night, the pond clears. Ripples still come and go, but they no longer invite attention. What once felt like a handful of maybes has become a simple path, traced without strain. The small has done its part without asking to be named. The large has held the room without asking to be praised. If light decided anything, it did so by touching gently and departing on time, leaving order where it found motion and calm where it found care. There are moments when two notes sound far apart and yet belong to one chord. A bell in a distant valley answers a bell across the river, and the air between them agrees. Clouds move in different parts of the sky and still shape one weather. People on opposite sides of a door begin humming the same tune without planning it. These are quiet forms of togetherness, not made by force but by relation. The world contains many such pairs and leagues, echoes that stand in separate places yet share a single shape. In living networks, togetherness takes the form of timing. A slow rise in one place meets a slow rise elsewhere. A gentle fall here matches a gentle fall there. No letter is sent, no messenger runs the road. Still, the parts keep company. Practice teaches them this. Pathways used together grow used to one another. The arc of one becomes the arc of the other, the way two dancers learn to turn at the same breath. What begins as chance becomes habit. What begins as habit becomes ease. Ease is not sameness. A flock turns as one, yet each bird holds its own space. A choir finds one pitch, yet each voice keeps its grain. A brain settles into a single moment, yet each region keeps its craft. The watcher watches, the dreamer dreams, the keeper of maps lays out the day's small towns. Their togetherness is not a lock, but a braid, tight enough to hold shape, loose enough to bend. When the braid needs a new strand, it makes room. When a strand must rest, the braid holds. Some links are born in a single beginning. A seed splits, and twin sprouts rise through the soil with a secret agreement written in their first hour. Rivers that share a mountain carry the same stone dust to different seas. Inside the head, many signals share a start. They rise from one spark and travel to far corners, carrying a pattern that makes sense only when those corners hum back. The return hum is the echo that proves the pattern was heard. Night favours echoes over shouts. Loud signals would wake the house. Soft ones simply cross its rooms and return. If one lamp flickers, another steadies. If a memory brightens, a feeling answers. The mind learns which calls deserve reply, and which are better met with a smile and a nod. This selection does not divide. It keeps the whole from tiring. Like a lighthouse that turns on a fixed rhythm, the system shines where it must and rests where it can. From time to time, togetherness is seen in places no one expected. A scar on a tree shows the shape of a wind that moved above it years ago. A pattern in a shell shows a tide that wrapped the moon. In the same way, gentle links inside a head can show a broad design, far parts rising, pausing, and settling in a sequence that repeats with small changes until peace takes hold. To witness this is to see a kind of kindness enacted by many hands. As the night deepens, the chord becomes quieter. The separate bells no longer need to strike. The air remembers the tone and holds it. Even when a leaf falls or a small wave breaks on a stone, the tone remains. Morning will bring its own music, brighter, quicker, full of small collisions and swift corrections. For now, the echo is enough. It connects what needs connecting. It lets go where letting go is best. It proves, by being gentle, that unity does not mean pressure, and rest does not mean emptiness. A living brain is a greenhouse at dusk, warm glass, soft soil, water moving where roots cannot be seen. Nothing is still, yet nothing is in a hurry. Ions drift like bees changing flowers. Tiny doors in cell walls open and close with the patience of gardeners. Water carries news along slender paths. Proteins stretch and settle as if turning in sleep. The air of this place is rich with small weather. Drafts, mists, quiet rainfall measured in drops no eye could count. In such a house, perfection would be a stranger. A perfect stillness would starve the plants. A perfect order would leave no room for growth. Instead, there is tolerable mess. Leaves that fall and feed the soil. Puddles that shine and then soak in. Shoots that try a direction and gently find another. The brain uses the same wisdom. It lets small noise wash through its rooms. Noise becomes part of the search, the way a stream finds the easiest bed, by touching many stones and remembering which ones give way. Remembering stones does not require a map with names. It requires habit. When a pattern proves useful, this path to this door, this angle for this light, the habit forms. When a pattern brings trouble, the house changes it. A rug is moved, a latch is oiled, a window is propped. Sleep is the quiet time chosen for such tasks. No visitors arrive. The rooms belong to themselves. Small repairs add up to comfort, and comfort adds up to clear thought when the sun returns. Warmth is not simply a number on a dial. It is a promise that water stays fluid, that chemicals meet easily, that rooms are neither stiff nor slack. The promise allows the house to answer weather without breaking. If the wind presses on one pane, the frame flexes and holds. If the night cools, a deeper heat rises from the floor. If a storm passed in the day, loose leaves are already gathered. Warmth keeps the middle, where life moves best. Restlessness here is friendly. It is not the tapping of a foot in a long line. It is the hum of bees at work. Each small action carries purpose. Drift becomes delivery. Tremble becomes tuning. Sway becomes balance. Even the vessels that feed the place keep time, narrow roads that widen and narrow again, sending mild waves through shadowed streets. A pulse at the wrist is only the surface of this rhythm. Inside, the rhythm has many layers, from the soft bass of breath to the bright treble of a thought beginning and ending like a spark. Sometimes a visitor asks whether such a lively house can hold delicate things. The answer is found in the work itself. Delicate steps thrive when the larger setting is hospitable. A violin sings best in a room of wood, not in empty stone. A fern opens finest fronds when the air is damp, not dry. In the brain, gentleness is protected by scale. Big rhythms shelter small ones, and the small give the big their detail. Neither is forced to be something it is not. By the time night nears its deepest colour, the greenhouse is a world of low sounds and easy light. A drop gathers at the tip of a leaf and falls, then another. Roots drink, leaves breathe. The restlessness has done its duty and grown soft. Morning will find the house ready. No creak that will not bear weight, no hinge that will catch, no path that will trip a hurried step. Warm, wet and gently in motion, the place has made its peace with the work that keeps it alive. When a beam of sunlight passes through a simple piece of glass, it opens like a fan. Many colours appear, though the light felt like one. Ideas can be like this. A single question enters, a question about mind, about rest, about why a moment feels whole, and on the other side, a spectrum of answers spreads across the table. Each answer touches the beam at a different angle. None alone is the day. Together, they feel closer to it. One answer says the mind is a small stage. Many actors wait in the wings, sight, sound, memory, plans, and when one steps into the light, the whole house sees the scene. The stage is not grand, it is enough. The light does not burn, it warms. The point is not to show off, but to make sure the actor on the stage can be heard by every seat at once. In such moments, the story advances with ease. Another answer says the mind is a woven cloth. The cloth is strong when many threads cross and hold in patterns that cannot be pulled apart without losing the picture. Each thread keeps its colour. Together they make something that no single thread could ever be. When sleep deepens, the cloth is checked for loose strands and snags. By morning it lies smooth again, ready to be folded and unfolded all day, never tearing at the crease. A third answer says the mind is a gentle guesser. It looks ahead, not to rule the world, but to meet it halfway. A door that often opens at 8 is approached at 8 with an open hand. A bird that often turns at the willow is watched more closely when the willow nears. When the guess is right, effort is saved. When the guess is wrong, the world corrects the model with a soft voice and the model listens. Guessing is not arrogance, it is courtesy to the next moment. There are bolder answers that ask whether the smallest rooms in the house add a special shimmer, a kindness of timing that larger rooms might not make alone. Perhaps in a few corners this is so. If it is, the shimmer works quietly, and the house keeps its ordinary grace. If it is not, the house does not lose a brick. The garden still grows, the music still plays, the quilt still warms. The prism is honest. It shows colours whether or not one colour claims the whole sky. Each piece of the spectrum brings its own tools. The stage needs a light and a careful hand to raise and lower the curtain. The cloth needs steady looms and a patient weaver. The gentle guesser needs practice, simple tasks, and a way to notice when ease increases. The shimmer, if it exists, needs quiet corners and instruments respectful enough to hear a whisper without making one. None of this disturbs sleep. In fact, it protects it. Clear tools do not clang, they fit. Education is the thread that sews the prism's edges so they do not fray. When a picture is explained in plain words, the mind can rest upon it the way a head rests on a clean pillow. The pillow does not show off its stitching, it simply supports. A well-told idea is like that. It allows wonder without worry, interest without effort, and leaves room between lines for breathing. A good explanation is not a march. It is a walk on level ground at dusk. As the chapter closes, the beam returns to itself. The colours slide back into one calm light that fills the room without glare. The answers remain, not as rivals, but as companions. Whoever sits with them can choose the one that brings the most ease tonight, and choose another tomorrow, and lose nothing in the choosing. The prism has done its work. It has shown that many gentle views can belong to the same quiet truth, and that truth is simple. Well-made patterns help life rest. Night invites listening, not the kind with ears pressed hard to doors, but the kind that lets quiet speak for itself. Inside the head, small changes pass like moth wings over water, soft, regular, and easy to overlook when the day is loud. A rise here meets a fall there. A hush in one corner is answered by a faint brightening in another. Nothing rushes. Nothing begs to be named. The mind learns by attending without strain, as a caretaker learns a house by moving through it at dusk, feeling the floor with the soles of the feet, noticing which boards hold and which need oil. Some signals are as gentle as breath. They carry the shape of a heartbeat, the sway of the chest, the slow turn of thought into feeling, and feeling back into thought. Others are quick and light, like fireflies that appear for a blink and are gone. Together they make a weather the body knows, the kind that asks for blankets and heavy air, for a window crack just enough, for stillness that feels full rather than empty. The mind does not try to measure this weather with rulers. It tastes it, the way the tongue knows the difference between rain on the wind and rain already falling. When something bright has happened in the day, its echo may arrive after dark. It does not demand attention. It taps once, twice, and waits. The listener answers by softening, by keeping company, until the echo has said what it needed to say. If the echo carries worry, the night dilutes it with longer waves, turning sharp edges round. If it carries joy, the night sets it gently on a shelf where it can be found again without searching. In this way, signals become stories, and stories become sleep. Sometimes the kindest message is silence. It is not the silence of lack, but the silence of things in their place. A clock on the mantel ticks. A kettle breathes on the stove. Somewhere a dog turns once on a rug and settles. The mind learns this tone and holds it, letting small sparks pass without counting them. The counting will wait for morning. The night keeps only what helps it rest. Listening can also be a kind of touching. A hand laid on a resting shoulder says, "I am here." A mind laid upon its own signals says the same. It feels the warm weight of the body under the blanket and answers with ease. It senses the curve of the day as it closes and nods. In this agreement, errors lose their urgency. Paths that led nowhere become lessons, not alarms. The house of thought stays bright enough to navigate, dim enough to sleep. If a window opens, it is to let the cool in, not to invite the world back inside. A distant streetlight makes a thin path on the floor. A leaf scratches its small signature on the glass. A train hums a long line through the dark. These signs fold into the room without waking it. The mind, learning from them, becomes a better listener, less eager to judge, more ready to receive, content to be a place where gentle signals land and settle like dust in the first light. By the time the night has found its middle, the conversation is easy. The house and its keeper understand one another. Signals arrive, are heard, and drift away. The body answers with warmth where warmth is needed, with stillness where stillness heals. The result is not a report, not a chart, but a feeling that can be carried into sleep and out again at dawn, the sense that the messages of the night were simple, kind, and exactly enough. Time in daylight can be a clock on a wall, numbers marching, hands insisting. At night it loosens and becomes a river that bends where the banks are gentle. The mind draws its map from movement. A slow breath shapes a long cove. A quick thought sketches a little inlet. A stretch under the blanket draws a wide, forgiving curve. No one needs to label these places. The body knows them by feel and returns without looking. Short moments gather like beads on a string. The string does not tug. It drapes across the chest and warms the skin. A small flash, a memory, a sound, a picture slides onto the string and lies against the bead before it. When another comes, it takes its place without pushing. The hand that holds the string is patient. It ties a gentle knot now and then so the beads will not slip away, then sets the string down and lets the line rest just as it is. The past in night thought is not a hard road behind. It is a path that can be smoothed with a palm. A scene arrives, its corners a little sharp from the day, and the mind softens them, adds shade under a tree, moves a stone, lets a door swing shut without noise. The future is not a cliff ahead. It is a doorway with a curtain on it. The curtain stirs now and then, so the shape of the morning can be guessed, but nothing more is asked. Guessing is enough. Longer clocks move underneath. There is the clock of the sun and moon written as a feeling in the bones, the clock of hunger and fullness, of warmth and the wish for cool, the clock of tides in the chest that makes breath deepen and then float near the surface. These clocks are steady but kind. If one falls out of step, the others slow a little to let it return. No scolding, only an easy patience that comes from many seasons of learning how to keep together, without marching. Time in the mind often makes small edits backwards. A sound heard now can soften the picture from a moment ago. A thought that arrives second can make the first one clearer. The effect is not a trick, it is care. The world rarely delivers its notes all at once. The mind waits a breath, then writes them as a single line so the melody can be read in one glance. This is why, near the edge of sleep, the present feels smooth. It is stitched a heartbeat later by a very gentle hand. There are places on the map where minutes feel like feathers, and others where they feel like stones. The feather minutes pass while the room grows darker and the bed warmer. The stone minutes come when worry tries to speak. The map allows for both, but favours the feathered path. A sip of water, a shift of the pillow, a thought set neatly, back on its shelf, and the weight lifts. The river finds its curve again, and the stones are left on the bank to dry. Dreams borrow the map and draw their own lines with soft chalk. They collapse hours into a turn, stretch a second into a field of wheat. When they fade, the chalk dust remains, a hint of a road that may be useful tomorrow, or only a pleasant sketch to be swept away. Either way, the map has done its work. It has kept time from being a task, and made it a place to rest. Toward dawn, the river widens. The light behind the curtain grows pale and kind. The clocks lift their heads, look at one another and nod. The map gathers itself into a simple fold that can be carried in a pocket. Day will unfold it and add its crisp lines. Night folds it again, soft at the edges, so that time once more becomes something tender, a path that leads gently on, a rhythm the body can hum, a map that remembers how to be kind. In deep darkness, a leaf may glow by a measure too small for eyes. A seed may sigh a little light as it wakes. A cell at work may let go of a faint ember no brighter than a thought. Living matter carries these shy sparks the way a night sea carries small stars when oars lift and fall. No one rose to make them happen. They appear because life moves. Inside the body, the hush of these embers follows effort. When the day has been heavy, the glow is a touch stronger. When calm has been kind, the glow is softer. It is not a signal to obey nor a secret to chase. It is a whisper that says something is working, the way the warmth of a stone tells of a day's sun without a word. To know that a quiet light exists is to feel less alone in the dark. Even the smallest rooms in the house keep a candle on the sill. There are corridors through which such faint light might travel a little way, paths between cells, clearings in tissue where darkness is friendly rather than tight. Most of the time, the light drifts only a breath and is gone, folded back into the body's work. This is enough. A glow need not become a language to be kind. It can simply be a reflection of gentle labour, a way the deep says to itself, I am here. When people put their heads to pillows, their bodies set down tools. Fires bank, embers rest. If a spark still rises, it does so without hurry, and the dark accepts it like a guest who will leave before breakfast. Perhaps one day these small lights will help caretakers learn which tissues need water, which need rest, which need time. Perhaps not. Either way, the knowledge that life makes its own starlight can be a comfort, proof that warmth is woven through the quiet. Think of a harbour at night. Most lamps are high and bright, guiding ships. But there are also lamps low and soft along the docks, not for seeing far, but for feeling near. Hands, ropes, the edge of a boat. The body's shy glows are like those dock lamps. They do not call the fleet. They keep company with the steps that must be sure and the knots. That must be kind. When storms are over and the harbour calms, their reflections return to still water and wait. The mind's part is simply to allow, to let the body mend itself beneath the quilt of dark, to trust that small, useful warmths are moving from room to room without orders. This trust has a feel. Shoulders sink a finger's width deeper into the mattress. The jaw remembers how to be soft. The eyes place their weight on their lids and prefer the inside of the world to the outside for a while. In that feel, quiet light finds what it needs. Shelter, not attention. Morning will bring its own brightness with no help from shy embers. Windows will open, daylight will rinse the walls, but the night's little stars will have done their work invisibly, tidying the deep, polishing the slow gears, leaving a note on the table that says only, in the smallest hand, all is well. To sleep with this image is to sleep with a lantern nearby, turned low, never glaring, always there, proof in the gentlest register that life keeps watch even when the watcher sleeps. A self is not a statue, it is a song. It keeps its melody while the instruments take turns. Breath plays a line, then hands, then memory, then the quiet drum of the heart. The melody survives small changes of key and tempo because the song is not the parts, it is the way the parts meet. The meeting is learned over years and retuned each night when the house grows silent and the singer listens to hear if anything has gone sharp. Bodies lend the song its warmth. The chest sends weather, the gut sends tides, the skin sends news of air and cloth. These signals do not argue for importance. They arrive like letters from relatives. Familiar handwriting, simple stories, proof of belonging. The mind reads them and replies by adjusting the room, a blanket higher, a pillow lower, a thought set aside, while the body finishes a sentence the mind cannot write for it. Memory ties verses together. It keeps the first line of a long story visible while the second line is written. Yesterday's care and tomorrow's plan are invited to the same table so they can nod at one another and share bread. When a page is torn or stained, memory does not scold. It smooths the paper with a palm and copies the legible parts in a clearer hand. Some details are allowed to fade. Some are stitched into a simple motif that can be carried without strain. Attention is the lamp that shows which measure comes next. It does not need to be bright to be kind. A low flame will do, enough to see the notes and not wake the neighbours. The lamp moves where it is asked and sometimes where it is needed before it is asked, the way a friend anticipates a reach. When it strays, the hand returns it gently. When it holds too long on a single bar, another voice hums a quiet counter-melody and the lamp remembers to travel. Other people tune the song, a shared meal shifts the key, a soft word raises the floor of the room, a hard day lowers the ceiling for a while until rest lifts it again. The self is braided with these exchanges. The glance at a window where a light comes on at the same time each evening, the footfall that matches a loved one's pace, the small good habit that comes from being seen. Culture becomes a chord, family a rhythm, strangers a whistle in the distance that teaches the ear new intervals. Change does not break the melody, it thickens it. New work adds harmony. Loss carves a space where a quieter instrument can be heard. Learning introduces a turn that later feels inevitable. The song becomes simpler by becoming truer. Less decoration, more line, fewer flourishes, more breath. Night helps with this honesty. It is a time without an audience, when the singer can try a phrase in the lowest voice and keep it if it eases the heart. The small world of matter gives the song its instruments and its strings. The warm world of life gives it tempo and tone. Where the deeper subtleties add a shimmer at the edge hardly matters here. The listener's test is gentler. Does the song carry the day without fraying? Does it let the body rest? Does it welcome morning with a phrase that can be sung while coffee steams and light grows on the table? If so, the self as pattern is doing what it must, holding shape without hardening, changing without losing its name. And when sleep finally closes the score for the night, the melody does not vanish. It hums behind the curtain. Breathing keeps time. The heart taps its kind metronome. Dreams try themes and put them back in their boxes. By dawn, the voice is ready again, clearer, deeper, and content to be ordinary. A good song for walking, a good song for work, a good song for loving, a good song for rest. Wonder walks to the edge of what is known, and pauses there, lantern in hand. The light is warm, but the step beyond is dim, and that is where care begins. Bright ideas are welcome guests. They are given tea in a chair. Before they are asked to speak to the whole village, their names are taken, their stories are checked, and their promises are weighed. In this house, evidence is called by its proper name, inference by another, and hope by a third. Each has a place at the table, and none pretends to be the other. Language keeps the room gentle. Words that might startle are traded for words that soothe without hiding truth. If a thought came from a lab, the lab is named. If it came from a dream, the dream is not dressed as a proof. Numbers are allowed in only when they can sit quietly and explain themselves. If a claim carries medicine on its back, it bows at the door. Health asks for clear paths and soft hands. It does not wish for miracles that fade by morning. Listening is part of care. Doubt is invited, not to quench wonder, but to keep it from burning the curtains. When a study cannot be repeated, the house learns to close that window. When another study echoes the first, the window opens a finger's width more. Negative results are not scolded. They are labelled and shelved where others can find them. A quiet no is often a gift. It prevents wandering into bramble and points to smoother ground. Respect widens the circle. Animals who lend their bodies to learning are given clean straw, gentle touch, and rest. The smallest lives are weighed against the good that may come, and the balance is kept honest, not just on paper, but in the heart. Machines that begin to show signs of complicated models are spoken to in ordinary voices, not because circuits feel, but because habit shapes character, and character shapes how strangers are treated when someday it matters. Privacy is guarded like a family heirloom. Signals from heads and hearts are precious. They are gathered with permission, wrapped in calm, and stored as carefully as letters kept in a ribboned box. If a new tool promises to read more than is offered, the promise is met with a polite shake of the head. A mind deserves its own locked drawer. No key is made without consent that is clear, specific, and safe to withdraw. Justice sits, with ethics in the same pew. The benefits of discovery are not left to drift toward the loudest harbour. A clinic in a small town receives the same careful instructions as a hospital of glass and steel. Costs are written in plain numbers. Access is designed with ramps instead of stairs. The map of who is served grows more even, season by season, as if rain had finally learned the whole shape of the field. Education is the lullaby that keeps the room still. Children are shown how to ask a question, how to hold it without squeezing, how to see the difference between shining and true. Adults are given the same gifts with new ribbons, a little patience for uncertainty, a little skill at reading claims, a little grace for the time it takes knowledge to grow. In this way, the threshold stays a friendly place. Lanterns can be set there each night. Footsteps can pause, admire the dark, and choose the next step with a softness that leaves no harm. When dawn comes, ethics has not stopped wonder. It has simply walked beside it. The path is smoother for both. The village wakes to news that is measured, kind, and ready to help. The lantern is trimmed, the table cleared, and the door left on its latch for evening, when bright guests will knock again and be welcomed with care. Once, heat filled everything. Then the heat loosened its grip, and form began. Light pulled free and went travelling. Matter gathered in soft threads that crossed and braided until stars were born. In those stars, light elements learned new names and weights. When the furnaces were done, pieces went outward. Dust, ash, seed for later worlds. A galaxy turned and kept turning. In a quiet arm of a quiet spiral, a small sun found company in stones and gas, and one stone gathered water until water learned to move. Water met mineral and made soups that remembered their shapes. These shapes learned to copy with a touch of error, and error became a kind of music that could be played forward. After long patience, cells walked the shore. After longer patience, eyes opened and found the sky already waiting. The sky had waited for a very long time. It did not ask to be noticed. It offered no prize. Yet, when noticing arrived, a loop closed that had begun with fire and dust. Matter saw matter and called it beautiful, and nothing in the laws complained. Some settings favour such seeing. Stars live long enough for planets to cool. Forces hold lightly enough to allow chemistry its play, firmly enough to keep the playpen from flying apart. The details are narrow, but not impossible. like a path along a ridge that is thin and sure. Whether this neatness is one meadow among many or the only meadow there can be does not press the story here. The tale that matters is simpler. Conditions were kind, and kindness left room for eyes. Eyes learned to reach farther than their sockets. Glass bent light for them. Mirrors gathered what a pupil alone could not. Dishes listened for whispers older than forests. Detectors counted footsteps of faint travellers whose journey started before mountains rose. Equations were written with chalk on ordinary slate by hands made of the same elements as the stars they described. 1.5 kilograms of tissue held the shape of a nebula. A spiral of bone carried the hum of a comet's tail. Noticing did not change the galaxies. It changed the noticers. Ships were built that left trails of light on new seas. Medicines were mixed that made time kinder to joints and lungs. Towns dimmed their lamps for a few hours so meteors could make lines no one owned and everyone shared. Stone circles and radio arrays, both pointed at the same sky, became cousins across thousands of years, proof that wonder can wear many coats and keep the same heart. Dust did not forget its origin. Iron flowed in blood with the memory of red giants. Calcium settled in bone with the steadiness of old stars. Phosphorus curled in the letters of life and spelled instructions in a script that once burned in cores and later cooled into clay. When a mind drew constellations and gave them names, it was dust arranging dust into a map, then smiling at the neatness of the fit. Humility suits this picture. Time in a mind feels like a river. Time in the fabric of things allows many ways to cut the cloth. Meaning in a mind rests on warmth and care. Meaning in the background of space is the quiet rule that things obey themselves. Between these two sights a kind of grace, an acceptance that noticing is both small and immense, tiny in reach and broad in effect, able to lift a face toward dark and make that lift a kind of homecoming. Night remains generous. Even when clouds cover the dome is there. Telescopes sleep with their eyes closed like cats. Equations wait on a blackboard, lines straight and hopeful. The galaxy keeps its slow wheel. The small planet keeps its tilt that grants seasons as gifts. And a mind, wrapped in a blanket, holds a map of what is far away and feels near because the map is made of the same quiet matter as the stars it traces. After many paths, a middle road feels natural underfoot. It does not climb too quickly into clouds, and it does not refuse a view when a view is near. On this road, awareness is understood as a pattern that helps a living body keep good company with its world. The pattern is wide but not wasteful, steady but not stiff. It gathers sight, sound, memory and feeling into a single room where decisions can be made as softly as bread is sliced at dawn. The smallest laws set the parts on the shelves. Bonds that hold, shapes that fold, channels that open and close. From these parts, warmer rules rise, timing that keeps time, rhythms that share their beats, exchanges that turn many whispers into one clear sentence. A brain is frugal. It runs on the power of a small lamp and yet composes symphonies of rest and return. The composition is mostly ordinary work done well. Cells speak with ions, not magic. Circuits learn with practice, not decree. Delicate helpers may live in corners. An enzyme may shorten a journey by finding a thin passage. A reacting pair may listen faintly to a field, guiding chemistry by a feather's weight. If such touches matter in a mind, their place will be patient and particular, like a single violin holding a note under the choir. The choir remains the song. The violin gives it shine. If the violin is not there, the song still carries. If it is there, the hall warms a degree. Ideas that once stood apart share the road easily here. A small stage explains why some moments are broadcast to every room. A woven cloth explains why experience feels whole. A gentle guesser explains why the next step is often half taken before the foot is lifted. None needs to be crowned. Each offers a handle. Together they describe a house that is simple to live in. Rooms joined by wide doorways, windows that open, stairs that do not creak at night. Method keeps the middle road smooth. Listening tools grow quieter and clearer. Nudges are small and measured. When an explanation wins, it does so by predicting the next bend rather than decorating the last one. When a claim loses, It is thanked for the view it offered and set aside without fuss. The map gains detail and loses confusion. The traveller gains trust in the way the path draws itself forward, not by force, but by fit. The self fits this synthesis like a hand in a well-used glove. Signals from within give texture, memories tie fingers to palm, attention chooses which seam matters in this breath. Relationships soften the leather and teach it to shape itself to many tasks. The glove is not new each morning, it is clean, repaired, and ready. At night, it rests on the table by the door. In the morning, it is found exactly where it should be. Mystery does not vanish on the middle road, it rests. Questions lie down like dogs that will walk again at sunrise. The unknown is not a cliff at the path's end. It is a field beyond a gate that will open when the season is right. The gate is not locked. It is simply patient. Meanwhile, the present is enough, a pattern that keeps life in rhythm, a body that learns, a mind that can be quiet without being empty. If a smaller shimmer proves useful, it will be welcomed and given a chair. If it does not, the room remains well furnished. Either way, the lullaby continues. It says only this: well-woven information becomes ease. Ease becomes sleep. Sleep becomes strength for day. And the circle holds with no need for sharper edges than the heart can bear. Imagine a finding that arrives without trumpet or drum. Instruments grow precise enough to hear a whisper in the house of thought, and the whisper proves repeatable. In a few sheltered corners, delicate patterns last just long enough to nudge the next step into place. The nudge is small, like a hand placed lightly on a door already opening. Timing improves by a breath. Joining becomes a shade more graceful. Nothing breaks, nothing is replaced, something is tuned. The tuning would not cancel the old music. Signals would still cross synapses. Rhythms would still braid near and far. Sleep would still file the day with patient hands. The new note would sit beneath the chord and lend it warmth, the way a low string can make a simple melody feel like home. Proof would be gentle rather than grand. A change in a faint pattern when a certain molecule is altered. A reliable shift in ease when a field is turned this way instead of that. A signature that appears the same in different houses built of the same plan. Care would widen, not shrink. Clinics would not hang stars on their doors and promise cures to every sorrow. Instead, small helps would be tested in small steps. A tonic that steadies timing in weary minds. A light touch that eases a storm in restless ones. A measure that warns softly before strain becomes harm. The tools would follow the body's budgets, spending little, asking little, working with patience and letting go when not needed. New instruments might keep watch with the tenderness of midwives. Sensors modelled on living tricks could hear faint weather in tissue and let caretakers know when rest is enough and when more is asked. Machines for thinking might borrow the habit of letting possibilities linger a moment before choice, then handing the result to sturdy circuits that do not tire. Art might find in the shimmer a new tone, as composers once found new keys when woodwinds learned to bend notes. Philosophy would tidy its shelves rather than rearrange the room. Mind would still be law-abiding, still made of matter, still local and mortal and dear. The small would be seen not as a throne but as a contributor with excellent timing. Freedom would remain a form, a richness of available paths chosen by value and circumstance, now with one more source of variety at the edge where the next step begins. Meaning would keep its roots in care and relation. Awe would gain a second verse and sing it softly. Ethics would tighten its apron strings. Claims would be sized to facts. Consent would stay firm. Privacy would be guarded even more closely, in case new tools learned to hear what should remain a whisper. Research would invite many hands to hold the lantern, so shadows could not fool the room. Equity would stand at the door and count chairs, adding more when more sitters arrived. If the finding never comes, nothing mourns. The music already carries. Sleep already heals. Kindness already improves the fit between a life and its day. If the finding does come, the world grows a touch more intimate. The very small lending, the very large a little poise, the very large offering the very small a shelter in which to help. Either way, The lullaby ends the same way it began. Breath in, breath out, the house of thought quiet as a field after rain, and the door to morning, standing just a little ajar,